But first, a bit about the properties of thoughts themselves. We've often heard the term brain waves. Well, the waves in our brains are nothing like the waves in an ocean, but there are some similar properties. Waves have what's known as canceling properties, and this is probably best demonstrated with a set of noise-canceling headphones. Noise-canceling headphones work by emitting a sound that is exactly 180 degrees out of phase with the sound waves coming from the environment. In this diagram, you will see that there is actually a microphone on the outside of the headphones that picks up sound from the environment. A computer chip in the headphones analyzes this ambient sound, creates a sound, in this picture the red waves, that is 180 degrees out of phase with this ambient noise, the orange waves. And this canceling sound is emitted then through a speaker on the outside of the headphones. When these two sound waves collide, as the diagram shows at the bottom, the result is silence. Now, brain waves are not exactly the same as sound waves, but they share some similar properties, and one property is this canceling property. The brain is quite similar to sound when it comes to thoughts. We cannot simply delete or erase negative thoughts, but what we can do is launch positive thoughts that are exactly 180 degrees out of phase with the negative thoughts. Like a noise-canceling set of headphones, these colliding thoughts produce silence, the silence of thought. This is an extremely important concept when it comes to thinking. Many people simply want to try and ignore negative thoughts, and that will never work. The thoughts are simply too strong, too loud, too powerful. If we're going to stand any chance at quieting the negative thoughts, we have to launch positive thoughts, 180 degrees out of phase with the negative thoughts, to silence those thoughts. Not just any old positive thoughts will do. It's imperative that they fit that criteria of being 180 degrees out of phase, or as close as we can get. I call these thoughts antonym thoughts, literally the opposite of the cluster of negative thoughts that already exist. In the nomenclature of cognitive strategies, this is known as restructuring or editing. The goal now is to work up a set of thoughts and ideas that constitute a perspective that is 180 degrees out of phase with the negative perspective that has evolved in John's brain. So I sat down with John and we went to work on his set of antonym thoughts. The red lines on this slide represent rational, positive thoughts that are 180 degrees out of phase with John's negative thoughts. Take a look at how they match up. I am on top of my game. I will stay in control. I am just as good as I ever was. My coach respects me and likes me. I will strike out my usual number of batters. What emerged from this activity I like to call a library of antonym thoughts that John can now begin launching to cancel out the negative thoughts, which are being generated by his limbic system. John can use this library to launch these positive thoughts that are 180 degrees out of phase with the thoughts that are already being generated by his limbic system. It may seem at this point that we've gone a long way to neutralize the negative thinking in John's brain. And I would agree that yes, we've done quite a bit, but we're really just getting started. If we were to quit now, thinking that somehow we have effectively canceled out his negative thoughts just by creating positive ones, John would be quite disappointed. His limbic system would continue on, launching the negative thoughts and winning the war. The limbic system is incredibly strong and incredibly fast. Again, a beautiful design that keeps us alive in the case of facing real danger. In John's case, however, and I could probably say this for every one of my other clients as well, the danger isn't real. It's perceived. Fortunately, we have a weapon to use in this fight, the cerebral cortex. What the cerebral cortex lacks in strength and speed, it more than makes up for in size. The human brain has the capacity to connect something on the order of 500 trillion synapses, and 400 trillion of these lie in the cerebral cortex. That gives the cerebral cortex a 4-to-1 advantage over the limbic system in sheer volume. The key is to use as much of this cognitive horsepower as humanly possible to cancel out the limbic noise in John's brain. Again, this is where CAVT comes into play. The red lines on this slide represent thoughts that are 180 degrees out of phase with John's negative thoughts. These thoughts are formed in the prefrontal cortex, where logical thinking is manufactured. If we were to simply try and think these more rational thoughts, we're not going to get very far very fast. If, however, we write these thoughts down, we start to gather some signal strength by engaging the motor cortex. The motor cortex handles the signals that create movement, holding a pen, moving our hands to write, to type, or to text. Writing, of course, requires that we feel the sensations of holding that pen, touching the keyboard or cell phone, thus bringing the sensory cortex into the effort as well. The parietal cortex also governs the sense of touch, primarily the fingertips. The fingertips contain dense nerve endings that require a massive amount of cognitive horsepower to operate. Thus, the act of writing, typing, or texting engages a very sizable chunk of real estate in the cerebral cortex. But if we stopped here, we would still be leaving a lot on the table.